Welcome back, everyone. In today's video, we're going to talk about how much you should have in your emergency fund. That's a really loaded question, as this is going to vary from person to person, and you have to think about what this emergency fund is going to actually be used for. You can use your emergency fund for loss of a job, repairs to a house or a car, time off for illnesses or parental leave, anything like that. So it depends on the situation, how long you think you're going to require these funds. Most advisors recommend 3 to 6 months salary in your emergency fund. This is likely because you should be able to find new employment within that 3 to 6 months and get some income coming in again. Keep in mind you will have access to some government benefits over that time as well that will help you out during that stretch. So the median household income in Alberta is about $125,500, and that has an after-tax household income of about $80,500 per year. And again, that's a household income, so it depends on how you split your finances within your family, whether everything goes into a joint account or you have separate accounts. That's all going to vary depending on your situation. But we'll just use some household income as an example. So if the median household income is about $80,500 per year after tax, that's about $6,700 per month that you're bringing home. And so you should have about $20,000 to $40,000 saved up in your emergency fund, according to the advisors. This seems a little high to me. Some advisors even recommend 8 to 12 months of savings now in your emergency fund, especially if you're self-employed. Since the pandemic, that's sort of changed a few things, so they're recommending a little bit more in your emergency fund. I do recommend, rather than basing it on a salary, basing it on your spending habits. So if you track your spending, and I do have a video on spending habits and tracking and budgeting. If you can find out how much you spend per month and maybe base your emergency fund on that, I think that's far more effective than basing it on your salary. So if your spending habits are $2,000 per month, then maybe have 3 to 6 months saved up based on your spending habits rather than how much income you usually have. Now, there are some advisors out there that will recommend not even having an emergency fund. They state that fiscally, emergency funds happen so infrequently, then why should you have all that cash, that $20,000 to $40,000 sitting in a savings account earning next to nothing in interest, when you could be investing that and making a lot more interest? And they recommend if an emergency does arise, and again their argument is that it doesn't arise very often, then take out a loan and then pay that back as fast as possible. I'm not a big fan of that strategy, as I feel like Canadians and Americans are in too much debt as it is. But again, everybody is different. If you're going to follow that method, you have to be really disciplined. Try to pay off that debt as quickly as you can. When you do take out that loan, don't get stuck and just get further and further in debt. But the point is you need to find a strategy that does work for you. For example, in my situation, both my wife and I are teachers. That has proved to be a very stable career path. We're not at risk of being unemployed for a long period of time. So we have less than that in an emergency account. What we decided to do was we decided to take the largest one-time expense that we could think of, use that as the amount we would put into our emergency account. And what we did was we broke that amount into 12, so that we could have a fully funded emergency fund in 12 months, so in 1 year. So hypothetically, let's say I wanted $6,000 in my emergency fund. So if you break that up into 12, that's $500 every month. So we would put $500 every month into our emergency fund, and after 1 full year, our emergency fund was fully funded at that $6,000. Let's say that we needed to fix up our car, and that cost $1,000. Then we would take the $1,000 out of our emergency fund, and then the following months we would re-put in that $500, and it would take 2 months to refund the emergency fund and get it all topped up again. We recently had an emergency that required more than what we had in our emergency fund. So what we did was, again, we used that $500 per month, and we kept topping up our emergency fund until we had enough funds into that emergency fund to pay for that expense. And then we spent the next year just putting in that $500 per month, knowing that in 1 year it would be fully funded again. That's just something that worked for us, and is working very well for us. We're comfortable with it. Everyone needs to find their own plan, and again, it is important to have some sort of emergency fund plan. Where do we keep our emergency fund? We do keep it in a high interest savings account at EQ Bank. These should be kept somewhere where it's easily accessible, where you can have money in instantaneously, really. And EQ allows us to do that. We can take our money out at any time. We can get a slightly higher interest rate on it than other places as well. So that's where we choose to keep ours. Keeping it in an investment account or something like that doesn't make a lot of sense, because it does take some time to transfer over, and you don't want to lose a lot of money or anything. So it should be somewhere safe, and it should be somewhere where you can access it very quickly. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you've got some ideas about how to build your emergency account. If you have enjoyed watching this video and want to be informed of more, please click the subscribe button below. And as always, have a wonderful day.